Okay, guys, today we're going to talk about the French Revolution, and I'll start by saying I'm not really an expert on this, but I've learned quite a bit in the last few years. Uh, so it's probably not as well known to us. It happened around the same time as the American Revolution, a few years after, and the French Revolution kind of helped Europe get into this democratic age. It also borrowed from our revolution. We kind of borrowed from some of the ideas from it, so it's an important time in history, and I think some important things will come up. Okay, the French had a societal structure based on three estates, probably estate in French. The first estate was the clergy, so that means religion, okay, so the Catholic Church. The second estate were the nobles, so the monarchy and the nobles. These were a tiny slice of the population, most of the power. Okay. The third estate is just the common people. So it's most of the people, very little power or wealth. So basically, when things came to a vote, they would get together, and the first two estates would always win. They would vote against the third one. The third estate also was the only one that paid taxes, and they funded the first and second estate. There's a deal on one thing that might point to that is this big palace at Versailles. It's going to come up later. There's a treaty that's signed at this place, is paid for by these kind of things. So by King Louis the 14th. Builds this palace at Versailles. If you look on page 836, it shows that. It's amazing, and it plays a part in this too. So anyways, people kind of start to get fed up with that, and so people come out with this thing called the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Okay, and it's kind of like a Declaration of Independence type document. It says that people should have these rights. Men are born and remain free and equal in rights. The aim of every political association is the preservation of the natural rights of man. And so basically the king was not looking after the common people. Okay, so they forced the king to sign as a constitution that's based on this universal Declaration of the Rights of Man. Okay, they storm a place called the Bastille. It's a prison, and they have a bunch of weapons and stuff there. The revolutionaries storm the Bastille. This is the summary part. Okay, so I'm going to go kind of fast, and I'm going to stop, though, in a couple spots. Other European monarchs get a little bit nervous that their own people are going to revolt, so they're like, hey, King Louis the 16th, get your stuff together. Get control of your people, or we're going to come get control of you. These radicals take charge of France, and they're led by a guy named Robespierre, and he ends up being kind of a bad guy. And that era is called the Reign of Terror. And during the Reign of Terror, basically anybody who opposed their ideas, they just... And actually, they use this thing called the guillotine to kill people. You've probably seen that. It drops. It's got a sliced edge, and it comes in and chops your head off real quick. The book here says that 17,000 people were executed during those couple of years, including King Louis the 16th and his wife Marie Antoinette, who is famous for, and this will be extra credit on your paper, for a saying called "Le Temit cake." And what that means is everybody was revolting, people were mad, and the common people or the poor people were mad that they didn't even have bread to eat. And this is a quote that means that she was way out of touch. She was so out of touch, she's like, well, they don't have bread? Let them eat cake. Like everybody would just have cake. If you don't have bread, you probably don't have cake. Anyways, it's a famous quote. She got her head chopped off by the guillotine. The guillotine, fun fact, maybe not so fun, was meant to be a humane way to kill people because it would chop your head off really fast and sharp, as opposed to like someone using an axe to hack away at your neck. So it was actually supposed to be a more humane way to do things, and it got it done really fast. Lots of people died from it. Another fun fact, maybe. Scientists aren't quite sure. Like if you get your head chopped off by the guillotine, the way that your brain works, some people think that maybe your brain can still think, so you will be able to know that you just got your head chopped off. It'll be able to think for like another couple seconds after your head is chopped off, so it's kind of a freaky thing to think about. Anyways, the era of Napoleon. So this guy Napoleon, basically, these new governments, they all fail. One was way too radical, that Robespierre guy. He ends up getting his head chopped off by the guillotine. There's another government that's just kind of, it's a little too weak. And so the one good thing France is doing is winning wars all over Europe. And this guy Napoleon, a diminutive leader, he kind of gets this, they call it the Napoleon complex, that if you're small, like my dog has Napoleon complex. It's a tiny little dog, and he likes to attack big dogs. It's kind of how Napoleon was. But he won these wars all over, and so he takes control and eventually turns France into an empire. So here we go. People wanted more control, and they ended up with an emperor. He's still winning wars all over, but his biggest flaw, his biggest mistake was he decided to go attack Russia. And he had a chance to turn around, and he decided to go anyway. And if there's one thing that history teaches us, it is do not attack Russia in winter. It's a bad idea. It's really cold there. He's forced to turn around. He's defeated then by the British at a place called Waterloo. He ends up in exile. Watch the video. It's kind of a fun little video on Napoleon and his life. 3 positive changes that came from the French Revolution. The importance of human rights. Okay, people started focusing on that. Monarchs were pressured to give up some of their power. I mean, if you look back to the Magna Carta, that was 1200. This is 500 years later. People are still like working on that. And it also ended the privileges of noblemen and that feudal system that was still alive in Europe. So that's the French Revolution in a nutshell. At the end, I'm going to write down your little extra credit question. So if you listen to the video, good for you. Write down your extra credit answer, and you'll get 5 points.